Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to this conversation between myself and Kristina Scharp. As a little introduction, my name is Abbie Van Meter. I am the host of the Stories Lived, Stories Told podcast, which is an initiative of the CMM Institute for Personal and Social Evolution. And I'm very excited that I will be attending the Central States Communication Association this year in Minneapolis as a participant, but also as the resident live podcaster. So I will be around throughout the week presenting the opportunity to all conference participants to join me in short recordings, a little bit like what Kristina and I are doing today, to talk about how you are translating your communication work. So look out for me when you join us live in person in Minneapolis. And for now, I'm so excited to be joined by Kristina to talk about this year's theme of Translate, which I absolutely love, and how she came up with that idea. So Kristina, hello, welcome. And do you want to introduce yourself and the theme of Translate to get us started?
Sure. My name is Kristina Scharp. I'm an associate professor at Rutgers University in the Department of Communication, where I also run the Family Communication and Relationships Lab with a collaborator I have at Michigan State. This year, I have the pleasure of serving as first vice president of the Central States Communication Association. And that means that I got to select the conference theme and plan the conference for this year. The theme that we went with is Translate. It's something near and dear to my heart because I truly believe that the folks in communication have quite a lot to share with others. We have such a broad range of subdisciplines. So folks who study interpersonal communication, health communication, political communication. So it really spans quite a large swath of different topics. And in teaching as well, we teach a lot of students on fundamental skills that are required in any job they might pursue. So really this idea of Translate is taking what we know as communication professionals and being able to share that with communities and students and really helping people make good decisions based on data-driven studies and the kind of expertise that we have as communication professionals.
I think that feels really important because one thing that's coming to mind for me is that in my own life, I think I've found that you really can't talk about theory without talking about practice and vice versa. Like they are innately intertwined. And at the same time, it's really important to acknowledge that a lot of the language that is used in academia isn't always accessible. So like you're saying, it becomes that question of like, how do we keep the theoretical foundation, the rich scholarship that this is grounded in, that is data, evidence, research driven, that is so important. And how do we translate is the word you've chosen, which I love because it does feel like a translation almost from one language to another, or like, how do we keep the quality of what is admittedly very complex, what is very rich, and how do we make it accessible for people? So I just love this question. And I wonder if you would say a little more about, your own work with communication and how that, you've already said that Translate is near and dear to your heart, but maybe you could give us a little taste of what your practice of translating has actually been.
Sure. So I specialize in interpersonal, family, and health communication domains. And oftentimes I look at people going through major transitions or extreme difficulties. And I think about, in our everyday lives and my students' lives, like, what do they do when they have problems? And oftentimes they're turning to the internet. They're like looking at a BuzzFeed quiz, like, what do I do if I think my partner's cheating on me?
Yeah.
And, a lot of my colleagues, in communication have some of these answers.
Right, right.
And so the work that I probably translate the most is my work on family estrangement. So when one family member voluntarily and intentionally distances themselves from another family member because of an ongoing negative relationship. And it affects the entire family system. Even if it's good for the person initiating distance, it still is really difficult to manage.
Yeah.
And so thinking about all the people, about 27% of people experience some sort of family estrangement, and thinking about all the people who might want to know, like, what should I do? Is this normal? How do I talk to my family members or people outside my family members about this? So, some of the things that I've been able to do is to partner with therapists and counselors and help them with some educational materials.
Hmm.
So, when people seek counseling, they have some evidence based data that facilitates the counseling. I also really like partnering with communities to understand what their needs are. I do that a lot when I work on studies about student populations. So,
Hmm.
partnering with different student affairs professionals. I'm interested in first generation students
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
undergraduate student parents and trying to really help students increase their upward mobility. And so, a mix between professionals, therapists,
Hmm.
student affairs folks, and even engaging with the media are ways that
Yeah,
I
right.
work to translate. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great answer, and makes me think of two experiences in my own life that may spark memories or thoughts for people listening about what translate would mean to them as well. Because I can picture myself sitting in my, probably intro to interpersonal class at Ball State University, and just being overwhelmed by all this great like language and the tools that again, like we have such a rich discipline, and I only got to access it because I chose to study it. And so I just remember having that thought of like, wow, everyone should know this kind of stuff. And when I did finally like kind of develop that lens as a student, I could look back and better understand the dynamics in my own family, both like my immediate family and my extended family, to say, oh, all of the hurt or miscommunication or like bad feelings, bad dynamics that have grown in this family, it's not a lack of loving or caring or trying. It's a lack of tools. It's a lack of language. And so I think that for me is why that translate feels so important, because it's great for, all of the academics to have this information and have access. But what about the people that are also communicating and in relationships and, like your field of things, in their families and navigating what family looks like? So it feels so important to me. I imagine that people, like I said, as they're listening, are probably coming up with their own, experiences are coming to mind of why translate matters to them too. So I think without a doubt, such an important theme for us. And I'm curious to know a little more about what you hope translate will look like at the conference. How will this theme of translate be embodied in your mind when we all gather?
I'm really lucky, right? Because I was able to choose the theme, it kind of oriented people to be thinking about this.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I think it's going to manifest in a variety of ways. Some, like in the panels people have proposed,
Yes.
in the papers that they've written, the focus on the practical. We also have some really amazing short courses. Heather
Hmm.
Carmack is coming from the Mayo Institute to talk about translating in the health field. We have Kyle, who is the editor of Communication Education, who runs a podcast talking about how people can also do
Yes.
podcasts. And we have this wonderful opportunity we have with you where people can come find you at the conference and really be able to talk about what they're doing to translate their work in teaching. And so, for everyone who's attending CSCA, make sure you try to find Abbie. She'll be
Hmm.
around the conference at different days and different times, and you'll be able to share your experience. And there's so many different ways people do this, especially depending on their subdiscipline.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great. Glad to extend the invitation again for people to come find me to create, what I hope will ultimately be this kind of, collection that is representative of those great conversations you have at a conference that happen between the sessions when you're inspired by something you've heard, and then you can, connect it to the other ideas or this other work or this other, your colleague who's doing something similar, and you just learn from each other. And so that's what my hope is as we wrap up here, thinking about how people are listening to this conversation, that our hope is that this is, in anticipation of the conference, people are tuning in to hear a little more from you about your hopes and what to expect. I'm wondering if there's any other invitations in the meantime that you would want to extend to people of as they gear up for CSCA, what would you have them keep in mind? What are you hoping that they're reflecting on, anticipating? What are they getting excited for about the conference?
Sure, I guess a couple things. One is I think that because there's not like a clinical arm of communication,
Hmm.
sometimes we don't realize how much information we have that really can help people. So,
Yes.
just inviting people to think about the different practices and knowledge that they have that really could be shared with others in unique, different ways, especially our teachers. I think we have such amazing teachers in communication, really excellent educators in the ways that even sharing teaching practices are really a way to
Hmm.
translate something really important. And our conference is in Minneapolis. It is from April 14th to the 19th. Yeah, I hope that people reach out and make new connections and really kind of brainstorm with each other different ways that they can make a difference and put their knowledge to work.
I love it. Thanks so much, Kristina. I'll look forward to seeing you in Minneapolis soon.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.